Do you feel the vibes?
Oh my
That's
god!
huge!
Corey, that's a Rebels thing.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Breakdown Podcast. I'm Corey, and with me today, once again, to break down the latest episode of The Mandalorian is Tessa, Richard, and Vic.
That's me.
What's up?
And before
And
we get
Kona.
started, we Kona. We do want to let you know we are recording this audio version as well as YouTube. So if you're listening to the audio version, we do have a YouTube channel. If you go to the link in the description, you will find that link to the YouTube page. Head on over there, hit the subscribe button, leave us some comments, hit the bell for notifications, do all that stuff. You know the routine. You guys watch enough YouTube videos. You've heard this 1,000 times before. So that helps us all out. And if you're watching the YouTube channel, these audio versions are available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, and probably other places that I don't even know about. So without further ado, Vic, let's break it down.
All right, so this week's episode is Chapter 21, Episode 5 for the season, and it's titled The Pirate. As soon as I saw it, my heart sank because I knew what it was going to start out with. Gorian Shard. I hate the fact that we have to have a conversation about this, but Tessa, the episode starts off with Gorian Shard attacking Navarro 7. He's a little bit pissed off because one, they shot like 7 of his men and they kicked Vane off the planet, and then the Mandalorian made them look like idiots as they proclaimed that they would never trust a pirate and flew off into the sunset. But he's going to make Grief Karga pay for his indiscretion. And they basically just tear the entire city asunder. It sucked. What'd you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think this episode could have been used in better ways, but honestly, the majority of my joy from it came from knowing how miserable you were. Seeing your good friend Gorian Shart again. But it was typical pirate captain. You got embarrassed, and rather than say, we messed up, it's, oh, you overstepped the line. We were taking care of you, and you did this. You infringed on what we were doing. So I'm going to come and attack some innocent people that really don't have any legitimate defense system, while your main source of protection is clearly off-world. Yeah, you're going to try to call your bluff and say, "Oh, don't mistake me for weakness." No, don't. I'm still strong. And your friend Gorian Shart says, "Ha ha 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 ha." Yeah, we're coming.
And that they did. I hate this character. I absolutely hate this character, and I am absolutely 100%. There are many characters that I'll go, I really wish that they didn't just like kill off all the bad guys right away, but this is one I'm really glad that they killed off right away, despite destroying that really cool looking Corsair, which I thought was a hammerhead, but I was wrong. The Grief Karga, like you said, he was like, "Oh, we're strong." It's like, dude, you never set up any kind of defenses for your entire civilization. Like, you let people fly in as they want to, obviously, because Mando just walks in, and so did Vane, and no one ever said anything. And now they're being attacked and bombarded. But you would think at some point, like he like you said, he called his bluff, and he's like, "Okay, I gotta get help." So he calls Carson Teva, which, in calling him, gave us one of the greatest reveals, Richard, of the season, I think, in my opinion. your reaction,
keep
you
hard.
caught it right before I, like, my reaction was like good. Tessa's reaction was good, but you were like, it's Zeb. Like as soon as you saw
Yeah,
it.
100%. Seeing Zeb live act
You
hard.
caught it right before I, like, my reaction was like good. Tessa's reaction was good, but you were like, it's Zeb. Like as soon as you saw
Yeah,
it.
100%.
Zeb!
Holy shit!
Oh my god!
They haven't returned a dispatch in weeks. They're swamped. We'll never get an answer in time.
Is it? Do you think it's really him?
Seeing Zeb live action. Obviously, you know, if you watch this, you've probably watched Rebels, but I mean, he was an integral part of the Ghost crew. He worked hand in hand with Ezra and Sabine, Hera, and I mean, seeing him pop up, it was just that was like the total geek moment.
Except for Corey. Corey was not geeked on it at all.
Yeah, very true. I'm like, okay.
He was
Not a
probably
big deal to
just
me.
sitting there going, "Why are you guys going crazy?"
No, to be honest, I assumed it was from one of the animated shows. But being as how I haven't seen either one of them, it had no effect on me. And that goes back to what I've said before about, yes, if you've watched all the other stuff, some of the stuff may hit harder in terms of either joy or pain. But as somebody who hasn't like gone out to the outskirts of the mainstream stuff, and yeah, you could argue, well, Clones is mainstream too, yeah, but it's for a select few people that are actually going to do it or to watch it. But yeah, so for me, it's just another random character on the show who wasn't even named, so I couldn't care less.
Well,
And I
No,
said
the other
that
thing about
correctly.
that is that's actually the second character from Rebels to make a physical appearance in Mandalorian. Well, third if you count Ahsoka, because we've now had Bo-Katan, Ahsoka, and Zeb all make live-action appearances, and last we saw them was in Rebels.
right.
Yeah, and I
Now-
knew who Ahsoka was prior to her being on here, so that was not one of those, not the same situation for me anyhow.
Now, in fairness, I mean, of course, I knew it was Zeb, having seen Rebels, but seeing that species, Zeb is not the first person to come to mind for me, because the first time I ever saw that species was playing Jedi Fallen Order
Mm-hmm.
and seeing Cal Kestis with his master, his Jedi master. So every time I see that species, that's what I immediately think of was Jedi Fallen Order.
Did you play Fallen Order before you saw Rebels?
I did, because
Okay.
I was admittedly on the Corey train, where I was not a fan of the animated stuff. I
Okay.
was of that thought process where I didn't think that, more. This is going to make it sound like it's a nasty XXX channel, but more adult material should be animated. I hate that stuff. Like, I hate Family Guy. I hate South Park. Like, all that stuff is dumb to me. It's dumb. But, after I played Jedi Fallen Order, I realized, there's a whole lot of stuff that is incorporated into these storylines that's not going away. It's only being integrated more and more and more. So I'm going to have to buckle down and watch these animated series that I've been avoiding. And I finally went ahead and did it. Yeah, there's still some things that bother me about the animation style, aka the thin saber blades in Rebels.
Mhm.
But it's necessary at this point. You have to know the story. You got to watch these shows now to have any clue about the timeline stream.
The
So-
secondary stories that are being brought into the live action stuff, like seeing Purgles for the first time. If you haven't seen any of the animated stuff, you go, oh cool, there's a space whale out there. But and once you've watched those episodes of things like Rebel and Clone Wars, you go, oh, there's Purgles, we know where this is going to happen, so that's definitely a thing. Corey, you had a rather visceral reaction after Carson Teva went back to Coruscant and did his slow walk up to the offices, which drove me nuts. He walks into Colonel Tuttle's office only to be greeted by one of the most ridiculous characters. Like we said,
By
everybody's
the
trying
ladies' man.
Everybody's trying to get into the Star Wars gig. And it's the ladies' man. I'm trying to remember what his name is. I had it.
Tim Meadows.
Tim Meadows, that's what it was. I was like, Tim Meadows is the name that I kept thinking of.
Meadows, yeah.
Tim Meadows.
Yeah. You know, here's the thing that I liked about the original trilogy, and that is most of the people you hadn't heard of unless you were either in to British cinema, which, you know, you got Alec Guinness and amongst others that are scattered throughout there, or you knew who Harrison Ford was from American Graffiti, and I think that may have been his first. There probably wasn't any other popular ones before that. So most of the people were unheard of. Nowadays, Star Wars is such a mainstream thing that everybody wants to get into it and wants to have you know, a title on their IMDb page. And I understand if you're at that point in your career and you can kind of say, hey, can you get me on there and do something? If it's something that you really want to do. You know, if it's really something like, I'd really like to be on a Star Wars movie or a show, I can understand that. And I can understand that, so I can understand they're wanting to. And I'm not saying that any of these people feel differently, but I feel like it's best that they're not there. I mean, Daniel Craig did it best as a stormtrooper. You didn't even know it was him. Yeah. You know, I'm perfectly fine with that. Because it doesn't draw any kind of, it doesn't take you out of the moment or the scene. Tim Meadows shows up and it's like, what the hell am I watching? Is, you know, we already had the slow walk into the office when things are dire, when you got a planet that's being in the process of being taken over, and you're just slow walking into the office. I'm already irritated by that, and then you show me Tim Meadows. It's stupid.
Well, you also got to keep in mind that in the original trilogy, nobody wanted anything to do with that project.
Yeah.
Like, everybody thought it was going to fail. Everybody hated it. So they couldn't even hire anybody of any sort of notoriety. That's why they had everybody that was a nobody acting in those movies, because nobody wanted anything to do with it.
But they still made for good films too, and you could sit there and watch them now and you not be taken out of it. Sure, maybe with Harrison Ford, you can, you know, because he became such a big name afterwards, but most of the other people didn't.
True, but if you've noticed that, especially in the last 20 years, if you made your debut with Star Wars, it almost typecasted you so hard that it has become almost impossible to get work after that. So it's a double-edged sword there. Because, I mean, just look at Hayden Christensen. Practically unknown beforehand. I mean, I knew him beforehand. You know, Life is a House, great movie with Kevin Kline, but nobody really knew who he was before episode 2 and episode 3. But what has he really done afterwards? Not a whole lot. He has not gotten one single major movie main role since.
Yeah, that's because he's kind of not a good actor.
So let me ask you this.
I will battle you on that, but that's a different subject. Anyway,
Richard.
Even the kid that played Anakin as a child, he dropped out of school and had mental issues because he was getting bullied and stuff.
I have a
story because everybody hated that character.
So he comes into my store and we're having a tournament, a Call of Duty tournament. And he walks in and he sits down and he starts playing and he won that tournament. That kid can play some Call of Duty. However, he looked like a hermit when he walked in. Like, he full facial hair, was like he looked like a Unabomber. But he walked in and like everybody kind of looked at him like, do we know this guy? Like, everybody was like, do we know, like, who is that? Because we didn't know if it was like somebody who came to the tournaments regularly or what, but we could not figure out for the life of us who he was. And one of my employees goes, I think that's Anakin Skywalker. And I was just like, bull ass. I walked in and I picked up his sign in, and I was like, holy shit, it is him. And that was right before he, like, I think like 3 or 4 days he disappeared. Like, he just drove, like, after he left that competition, like, he went home and then he left the state for, like, I don't know how long. And then they said that's when, like, this big thing came up about him, like, having issues and stuff like that. But we were just like, okay.
So what you're saying is your competition drove him to being crazy.
No, he won the competition. Like, he won. He
Yeah,
walked
but
out of there with everybody's, like, adulation about how badass he was at the game. So, like, it wasn't us. Like,
You can't really
Sure.
blame him though, because he couldn't show his face
Yeah.
after episode 1. He couldn't show his face. He was getting so much hatred, so much backlash, and again, he really kind of made his entry into major stardom in Hollywood with that role. So he couldn't get any role after that. Nobody would hire him because he was so typecasted as Anakin Skywalker.
yeah.
So what else did he have to do but stay inside his house, be a hermit, and play video games all day? So yeah, of course he was really freaking good at it. And when he does come out, he doesn't want anybody to know who he is.
Right.
So yeah, I'm fully expecting him to be bearded up and looking gross because he don't want nobody to look at him
Right.
and say, hey.
Yeah,
He doesn't want that because it's been nothing but
he's
hell
gonna
for
get
him.
mobbed, and I think he was more of an introvert, and having that popularity, I think that popularity caused people to clamor towards him, and that's definitely not who this dude was at all. He was very much like, I want to be, like, left alone, and everybody was on top of him because of it. But I will say, I actually didn't mind him being Colonel Tuttle because I find him annoying. Like, he's an annoying person to me. Like, his characters are all annoying to me. So his character type fit this character very much so. He was just like, I don't care. I'm kind of, yeah, okay, so what's the problem? Like, what do you need? Why are you here? Like, he plays that character very well. And I think that him being this character worked out. In my mind, I actually liked him as this character because though he was just, like, snippy and, like, didn't really care what was going on, what I didn't like about this portion of the episode was the fact that Kane pops in there. And I think the best thing was, didn't she come in to get a coffee order? Why is she still here? That was
Yep,
the best call for that statement. I was like, yeah, that's it. We don't need to say anything else. Why is she still here? Giving her input on something that's above her pay grade, in my opinion.
And that just went to prove the further just stupidity of the structure of the
New Republic.
The New Republic, because any military unit, any intelligence unit, even if you have some kind of amnesty program like they're doing with these, we're rehabilitating Empire personnel, we're giving them a second chance, any military or intelligence unit is going to still say, okay, we're trying to rehab you, but you still just fresh came from the enemy.
Yeah.
So any kind of top secret intelligence or, kind of aid,
We're not.
you should be nowhere near this room at any point in this conversation.
Exactly.
So the fact that he just let her come in, say, hey, you want anything to drink or eat? Sure, while you're at it, go ahead and stay in for this top secret conversation we're going to have about a planet who needs our help. And then I'm going to listen to you about telling me to say no.
Exactly. Takes her
What are you
opinion
doing?
over his soldier, like someone who's on the front line.
To Tessa's point too, the camera even makes a point of focusing on her ID badge and pointing out that she is a amnestied citizen. And the captain, he's kind of like, he gives her that side-eye glance.
And
yeah,
Tiva, looked
she was there.
at
She says, "I'm making a commissary run. Do you want anything?"
Yeah.
At that point, it should have been, "No, get out. Thank you. Have a nice day."
And Tiva looked directly at her badge. Like they made a point to show him look directly at it, and then they showed the tight shot of it. So like it was meant to know that Tiva knew she shouldn't be involved in this conversation. But
it wasn't even like. His head didn't necessarily like turn too much.
Yeah.
It was a stank eye. It was hard.
Exactly.
Stank eye. At that
if they don't follow up on this with him and this little story arc here, this little mini arc, there's something wrong. It's like, so because you pointed it out, we noticed it, then you pointed it out, and then you're just going to drop it all. You got to follow through with it. I worry that they're not going to follow through with it.
Yeah, they definitely
think they're building.
They definitely need to say something that emphasizes why that badge was so reticent in Tiva's mind to be staring at, like, what's going on here. Like, maybe he doesn't know about the amnesty program. Like, maybe he doesn't understand what's going on, but he probably definitely knows who she is. And
I don't agree.
So I don't know why he would, what his, his, in my opinion, I think that the idea was like, why is she here? Why is she talking? But her points obviously push towards the fact that she's a plant there to destabilize what's going on in the New Republic, and that it's obvious that that's where they're going with that. So to your point, Corey, yeah, they definitely need to talk about that more, but we only have 3 episodes left, so we'll see where they go.
So it's going to get dropped then.
We'll see. But
I think she's fishing for information from Moff Gideon.
Yeah. So Tiva, not happy with the response from Colonel Tuttle and Infiltrator Kane, decides to take matters into his own hand. He knows that the Mandalorian is friends with Grief Karga, and since the Coruscant doesn't care, as he stated, he goes to find the Mandalorian and see if he can get them involved. The way he found them, and we were all kind of commenting, like, how did he find them? Like, what? It doesn't make sense. And then you came to the point of, Richard came to the point that, he's tracking Bo-Katan's ship, which made sense to me when you said it. But then I was like, because, I mean, he's patrolling Mandalorian space. She's obviously got a transponder on her ship that allows them to know who the ship belongs to. But in that same respect, I was like, he would have come across her, so it makes sense that he would have been able to track the ship. But it ends up that
he specifically mentions that I'm visiting. I'm here to get help from a friend I served with way back when.
Yeah,
in reference to Bo-Katan.
He's like, how'd you find us? And
but that's what he's saying is before we got to that point.
Yeah,
the thought process of how he found them. And I even said, no, I don't think he's tracking her ship.
Right.
Because they would have made a point. A character that important coming in contact with a character that important, we would have seen that. And we didn't. So I was like, no, he hasn't come in contact with her ship before. I don't think he's tracking her and that ship. And then sure enough, we found out, no, he wasn't tracking her ship. He was tracking somebody else.
That they decided
and we thought,
make it.
And we thought for a hot second there was a Mandalorian that was a traitor that was, ratting out on their covenant to the resistance, rebellion, whatever, good guys, whatever. But again, who rolls into the scene, who seems to be rolling into every scene lately? R5.
This is where I get the Corey. This is where I gave this the Corey stare. What I call the Corey stare. Like, what? Why? That's the Corey stare, because they made a point to bring up the fact that he was part of the rebellion, right? And then they canonized that with this interaction, and I'm going, at no point did this happen that would have made any sense. Because that robot has been on Tatooine the entire time in every way, shape, and form, and he wasn't ever owned by, like, we never saw him in any of the movies, which is fine. But, like, who came down to Tatooine and picked up that robot, took him into the rebellion, used him, then returned him to Tatooine, and put him back into service for the Junker Queen of Tatooine, as it were.
Junker Queen.
There's no way, and then never cleaned him up, never fixed him up. He's exactly the same way he was when we last saw him in A New Hope. There's no way, but they forced this into canon, and I'm actually not happy with the way they did that.
I'll agree with you. I was on the Corey train with this too, where I think that they realized that there was this underground cult following with R5 and the whole comic book idea thought process about how involved R5 is. I think they took that and ran too far with it.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking, oh, R5 is just this underground fan favorite. We can really do anything with him because he was featured so little. We can pretty much make his story happen however we want. And it's just like, you're really stretching it now.
Was it necessary?
Yeah, and that's what happens when you start giving into fan service too much. I mean, I'm fine with fan service to a point, but when you start not thinking things logically, and when you've got too many hands in the kitchen, so to speak, that because you've got people that different people that wrote episodes 4, 5, and 6, that wrote 3, 1, 2, and 3, that writing this, you've got like in the case of R5, you can't just sit there and go, oh yeah, he was with the rebellion. Well, not if you go back and you watch all the movies. You never saw them. There's no possible way. Oh, well, we didn't watch that. But everybody likes this, so we're going to make it that way. It just so happens you didn't see him on screen. So yeah, I think the fan service can go too far.
I have a question. Something just popped in my mind, and I'm not sure if I remember this correctly. One of the episodes of, I want to say it was Clone Wars, there was an episode where there was like a spy network of astromech droids that were helping Ahsoka. Was R5 in that group? Do you remember that episode?
I'd have to rewatch the episode. It wasn't so much they were helping it. I remember a couple of different episodes. There was one where they had a little guy and they retrofitted the droid so that he could fit in the droid, and there was like 5 or 6 droids.
Yeah. I honestly think we'll have to check it. I'll go back and check it and research it. But I almost think R5 may have been in that group because of the nostalgia thing. They put him in there just to give him a little extra. And if he was, then technically he did work for the rebellion, because they were a spy group of astromech droids for the rebellion. This may be my brain not working correctly, but I'll check it and I'll let you guys know one way or the other. But I think that might canonize the fact that he may have actually gone off world for some reason, but it still doesn't make sense as to how that happened.
The thing is you have to think that he somehow ended up on Tatooine because the Jawas got him. So it wasn't so much that, like, so maybe there was something spying on Jabba or something that, he ended up in Tatooine.
Again, it doesn't make sense because we know from episode 4 that he ends up with the Jawas. If he was part of the rebellion, why would they let why would they just give up one of their droids to Jawas?
But you have to remember that R2-D2 and C-3PO were also part of the rebellion and ended up on the planet and ended up getting taken by Jawas.
Yeah, but why did they end up on the planet? They crash landed there, escaping.
There's no telling how he would have gotten there. That's part of the problem. But if that's the case, then it would have been a matter of him getting back to Tatooine or ending up on Tatooine after that whole thing happened, which is a possibility. But I digress.
Well, even in the episode that Vic's referencing, I think there was 5 droids that got retrofitted for this mission, and I don't think they all made it out. I think 1 or 2 of them got damaged and got left behind.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'd have to watch that episode.
Yeah. It just popped in my head. I just remember that episode as we were talking about it. So Carson gets to the covert. He explains to them what's going on. He tells Din that, like, your friend is in trouble. Nobody else is going to help. You guys can at least go there and help them out. And that turns into a covert meeting in front of the campfire with the talking stick. Which is another interesting dynamic that I was just like, what? Why do we need the talking stick?
Yeah,
No.
that was definitely one of those. I just stared at the screen. I'm like, they're not using the hammer as a talking stick, are they?
It got a reaction.
Yeah,
though.
they are.
It got a reaction from everybody.
Yeah, but not a good one.
It got a reaction from everybody. We were laughing about it. Like we thought it was silly, and the fact that it got a reaction and it got people talking, because we're not the only people that were talking about the hammer being a talking stick. It's been a conversation piece on Reddit, on all kinds of stuff. So obviously the decision to do
and
it.
in fairness, them using the hammer as a talking stick is reinforcing the
Tribal
absolute reverence that an armor, somebody with that skill level, what their place is in the Mandalorian belief system. So, I mean, yeah, it served its purpose. I mean, just, my teacher brain, I'm like, you're using a talking stick, really? Can we not do this in my favorite fandom? But in fairness, to be fair, it did its job. It's reinforcing how revered the armorers are in the Mandalorian faith.
It's also one of those things where it's a tribal thing also. So in a lot of tribal situations, you will have where whatever the point of the scepter, the whatever it is that the leader carries, ends up being the thing that gives someone else. That's saying the armorer says, I have the floor type of situation. And because they are a clan / tribal kind of society, it does kind of make sense that they would have done it. It's just not something I thought we would have seen as a thing, brought to life on the show. But the real surprise comes when Paz Vizsla gets up there, grabs the stick, and I'm going, as soon as I saw him do it, I was like, he's going to agree with him. But we all knew that the idea was that he was going to go against what he wanted. And the way he brought it in was in opposition to doing this. Like, he talks about the fact that we fought for this guy, he attacked us, he turned us over to the Empire, we can't trust this guy, we had to save Din from him, why should we trust this? But then he brings in, because we're the Mandalorians and it's what we do, quote unquote. And I was like, there you go, Paz, that's what you should be doing. And I that olive branch that has kind of been going back and forth between him and Mando, obviously was solidified when he saved Ragnar, his son. And I think from this point on, we're just going to see him kind of back Mando in a more positive fashion than we have seen him do it. And at that point, Bo-Katan does what she does and takes over. And sets the battle plan, tells everybody what they're going to do, and they head for Navarro. I think that, like, I played it out. Like, I did not like the idea of Bo-Katan still being like the leader, even though the armor is, but there is something to be said for her taking charge of what the armorer doesn't do, which is the armorer is a warrior. Let me not displace that, because we saw that later on in the episode when she just mollywops everybody in that office. But I don't really see her as a tactician and the person that will be on the front line like you have with Bo-Katan. Like, that's her thing. Like, she is a warrior, she's a leader, she's the person that's going to be on the front line. So I think that, like, that's definitely her. What is it, Corey? Stay in your lane. Like, that's her lane. Most definitely that's her lane. And I think that the armorer realizes that and just lets her, because she didn't challenge it. Nobody challenged, her going, taking control and setting the plan.
Yeah, I think like you said, it's a lot of a tribal situation there, where you have the armorer who's more of a general, overall general, and then you've got Bo-Katan who's more of a party commander. When the party goes out individually away from the armorer, Bo is in control. Right. She's the one in command. But as long as they are in the same grouping with the armorer, then the armorer is in command. But I think it's a well understood hierarchy at this point now, even though it wasn't necessarily blatantly said to us in any of the episodes. Mm-hmm. I think all of the Mandos understand that right. Whenever they go out and they're doing a mission or they're doing something away from the armor, they look to her for the lead, because right. the armor has clearly given her blessing and her faith in Bo to lead them tactically.
Richard, I think it's actually a couple things. I think part of it is deference to Bo-Katan, Princess of Mandalore. Another part of it is she has the ship.
That's true.
She who has the ship
Good
makes
point.
the plan.
Good point.
You're not going to come in. It doesn't matter who you are and say, I know it's your shit, but this is what I want to do with it. That's just not how it works.
That's a very good point.
And then we also know, going back to Princess of Mandalore, how much she has done as a true fighter, and her feats are well known across Mandalore, and the things that she has done. And she at one time did own the Darksaber. So I think there's a lot of deference to Bo-Katan as a fighter, as a leader, and then of course ultimately she's the ship's captain, and we want to use her ship. We do what the captain says.
Right. So they drop in on Navarro 7. Two, I guess, ground forces drop in different areas. Mando is distracting Gorian Shard and trying to keep him away from the gauntlet. And their swoop fighters come in, and Vane is trying to take him out, and they just get completely blindsided by the plan. And Gorian and his toady, Mr. Shmi, get distracted, and while the distraction's going on, she's able to get the troops in, and the ground war starts. It looks a little dire at first, but then the heavy drops in and just starts waylaying on everybody. It was a good kind of a very much like the first battle that we saw the Mandalorians come into to save Din. It was kind of very reminiscent to that. But then we get the armorer, who at some point, I don't know how she got there or when she got there, but she comes up and she just lays the smackdown on like 6 different guys inside of Grief Karga's office that they've set up as a heavy cannon position, a bunker for the pirates.
Well, most of them got a whomping from the hammer, but one of them got their spinal cord severed.
Yeah, that one I was just like, I don't understand. But like, it didn't look like she actually grabbed him at first to me, so I realized like that's kind of what they were going for.
Yeah, no, there was no grab.
Yeah.
There was no grab. There was a disconnect. That's what that was.
But
I gotta point out my favorite part in this scene is, I mean, honestly, it has nothing to do with the overall plot of the scene, but it was just so much fun to watch. Where one of their fighters that was coming from Gorian Shart's ship, yes, I did. I said it on purpose.
Yeah.
Mando is surfing on top of the ship as it goes down, and like right before it hits the ground, he uses his jetpack to kind of levitate off of it a little bit so he doesn't, get hurt in the crash. But just watching him surfing that ship on its way down was just so much fun for me.
How did I miss this?
I don't know.
I don't remember seeing that.
It was so much fun.
I have to watch it for like the 4th time because I need to see it. Yeah, so Gorian Shard underestimates the Mandalorians, underestimates the people of Navarro who had previously been forced out of the city, who then came back to the city and ended up pincer maneuvering what's left of the pirate forces on ground, and they forced Gorian Shard into crashing his Corsair, which means hopefully we will never see this character again. Like I'm hoping that at some point someone heard everyone's plea for getting rid of this character and just decided to have him go down with the ship.
You do realize what happened the last time you protested this much against him, right?
Yeah, he came back, but
yeah.
Look,
so
a fireball is as close to a body as you get, so I'll take it.
I don't know. Anakin got drenched in lava, and I mean,
Richard, I'm gonna need all three of you to understand that this cannot happen again. We do not want this to go again.
If it happens, it's not our fault.
I'm blaming you, Corey. So with the
hashtag
victory,
Dave Filoni saved Gorian Shard.
he created the character, so I don't know. But with the victory on Navarro 7, Corey, the Mandalorians are welcomed back by the people of Navarro 7, and Grief Karga gives them a tract of land between point A and point B. I can't remember what it was called, for them to be able to return back to Navarro 7 and have a new, I guess, place to I not really hide out anymore. They don't need to hide out, but as soon as they get back there, they go back to the sewer.
Yeah, they don't have their lakeside view anymore, which is probably good since they can keep getting eaten by the animals around them.
There could be crate dragons on Navarro 7, though.
But I think when it's all said and done, I think this whole story arc with this part of the episode was pointless. And I say that because in the previous episode, when Mando was on this planet, he was offered land and said, will you be my sheriff?
Right.
Now he ends up going. He's like, no, I can't, because his plan is to go back with the rest of the Mandalorians. Well, eventually, and he knew this after being baptized again and coming back. He knew that offer was still there. He knew that all the rest of the Mandalorians are living in a cave. And what better way to get them better housing and just a better way of life than to call him back up and go, hey, I got some people that'll be willing to do this, but we need this much land. It could have saved so much time, and none of this stuff would have even happened in the first place.
Well, see, I got to say something about that, because he hadn't won their respect at that point. They didn't trust him at that point. He couldn't just say, hey, I've got this huge plot of land, let's go live on it, because they still, he was just somebody that was shady to them. So, it took him dedicating that time and going through those trials to earn their respect, so that he could say, hey, we have this land, let's go.
Maybe so. But even, he didn't do anything in this episode that made them go, okay, you've earned our respect. The only reason he did it is because they were Mandalorians, and that's what they do.
Hold on. When you say he hadn't earned their respect, who are you talking about? Din earning whose respect? The people of Navarro?
No,
the rest of the Mandos.
Okay.
The rest of the Mandalorians.
So I understand what you're saying with that now, but my part to that is Grief offered that to him as a option before he went to Mandalore, before he bathed in the waters. He didn't care about that, because what he wanted was to be back with his coven, with his covert.
And That's got
what
that.
He wanted. But hold on. But with that being said, Grief offered him one small plot of land over here. Like, he didn't have, that wouldn't have been enough for the entire covert to come to. So this is a hey, we offered you this as just you, but I'm going to offer you a whole bigger area for your entire coven to be able to live in, because you came and helped us. But Mando couldn't have made that deal beforehand. He couldn't, because he didn't know.
He could have absolutely said, look, there's a group of us, we can keep this town safe, but we're going to need a bigger plot. You've already witnessed the fact that he's got all that land that he can give up. And knowing that he can keep his town safe, of course he's going to do it.
But none of that would have happened if he had have gone back to Mandalore and there wasn't any waters for him to bathe in. He wouldn't have been accepted back into the covert.
No, I'm talking about post. I'm talking about post the bath.
No, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, but the problem is that the people of Navarro didn't know the other Mandalorians. They didn't know them or trust them. And you can't bring a bunch of basically warriors, because for all they know, they're just like the pirates that they're trying to kick out. They don't know that they're trustworthy and that they're going to protect them. You just can't bring them and say, hey, we're here. We're going to live over here in this land. Okay, bye. you have to earn the trust of the community that you're going to move into and be a part of. But one
U.S.
thing
U.S. trips go overseas all the time and protect land, and they don't have to sit there worrying about trust.
that's a whole different
That's a whole
conversation.
different
So,
We're going to
there
back
was
up off that
also-
real quick. But one
there
thing
was-
I do want to point out is
Just
if you
saying.
notice when Grief Karga was talking, they did a very, very cool and respectful nod to somebody very important. When he was giving them the land, he said, I give you this land from this area all the way to Bullock Canyon. Y'all remember who Bullock was?
Was she that teacher that went off the cliff? Oh wait, that's Back to the Future 3. Never mind.
Shut up.
I hate you.
No,
Sometimes.
Bullock was Jeremy Bullock, the original actor for Boba Fett.
Oh yeah,
From
He
the
passed
original-
away
Yeah.
a couple years ago. Yeah, and
That was
makes,
really
it
cool.
makes sense. Like to me, and I understand what you're saying, Corey, but I just think that he wouldn't have been able to propose that. Like he could have come back to Navarro and said something, but after he got done with Mandalore, he went straight back to the covert in order to get back with his people. That conversation wasn't there, and he wouldn't have known that they needed the help because the attack hadn't happened yet. So like I
No,
think
but
that-
what I'm saying, but he knew he already had that altercation outside the school/bar, so he knew that they needed help, and he knew the offer was still on the table. Now that he's got this whole situation cleared up with his taking a bath thing, then he should have been able to say, "Look, we got this offer. We don't have to I can probably get it extended out, get more land. We can get out of this cave."
No, the biggest problem that you're glossing over in this whole thing is he would have been handcuffed. The whole promise of the land was he had to be the new sheriff.
Mhm.
And if he was the new sheriff, the entire covert was not coming with him because they weren't coming to be peacekeepers. This now allows them to come and be citizens and practice their way. Nobody has to work for Grief Karga, the High Magistrate. Nobody has to be a sheriff. Nobody has to do anything other than build their land the way they want. So they're no longer handcuffed, but they would have been had Mando had Din Djarin come back and said, "I will take your 10 acres and a mule, and then I'm going to bring my 40 other friends over and work it."
10 acres and a mule, 40 friends. Fucking hell.
I'll just say this last thing: a sheriff does need deputies, so.
Yeah, but in this,
But that's not what they wanted.
yeah,
They
in
didn't
this
want to be a private
instance-
army.
In this instance,
Well-
it turns into the fact that
They'd rather live in a cave and do nothing
no,
and get eaten by animals.
but now they're not. And now,
No,
but
but
they're
they
not,
live
they're
their
being welcome.
way.
They were not welcome on Navarro 7. If you remember, like they left Navarro 7 because they were driven out. Yes, it was.
Well,
by,
they had
it
been
was by
hiding
the-
to
it
begin
was-
with.
It was by the remnant, but they were driven off the world, so they didn't trust going back to Navarro 7 because they didn't trust whether or not they'd be safe there. At this point, they came back because of Mando and because of them deciding that this is the way. They came back, and then Grief assured them that that wasn't the case. They are safe there. They want them to be there. They believe that this can be a new home for them, and now that gives them the want and the drive to come back to Navarro 7 and set up their own civilization. So it's no longer a covert, which the covert by definition for them is hiding. This is now they can start their own actual Mandalorian civilization on Navarro 7 and build from there. So
No, but they were living in the sewers. They were hiding. The citizens didn't know they were there. It was very much a secret type of. It was like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's
Right.
like things happen in the night, but why?
Right. So one of the biggest things that happen with this is the armorer sends for Bo, and she's like, "Take off your helmet." And I was like, "Oh, this isn't good." Like that's completely what are you doing? And I don't remember who said it, but someone was like, "It's a test," and I was just like,
It was me.
Don't fail the test. Like, don't take off your helmet, because I seriously thought she was messing with her. But it comes down to the fact that the armorer has now seen that. One, I think that the fact that they were accepted onto Navarro 7, that the people are okay with them being around, so she realizes they don't have to hide themselves. But then she also realizes that in order for the Mandalorian people to reunite, they need to think outside of her small box that she's created for her one group. And she realizes that Bo-Katan is willing to change her ideology to be part of the covert, be part of the Children of the Watch. And if she can make that sacrifice, then why can't the armorer make the same sacrifice for the other Mandalorians that probably still want to have their community and their people brought back together? And she becomes kind of the new scion for the Mandalorians, which she was the old scion for the Mandalorians too, but it takes into consideration the fact that she was the once and technically current royalty for the Mandalorian people, as Richard said, but also she realizes she's probably the one that should be sent out because she is used to living both sides of their ideology at this point. So she proudly walks side by side with her helmet off, and everybody else, including Paz, is like, really? Didn't we just talk about this? Why does she have her helmet off again? It's only been like a month and she's already breaking the rules. But the armorer explains to them that this is the way. The armorer realizes that if she saw a mythosaur, or even if she thought she saw a mythosaur, this puts her in a whole new category of Mandalorian leadership to her. So I think that
well, I think it's that plus the fact that the armorer understands that if they stick to their very strict criteria on who gets to carry the label of Mandalorian, they will never be able to survive.
Right.
Because they're not bringing anybody, well, other than, foundlings and stuff like that. They're not bringing any more capable adults in. And there's only so many foundlings that they're finding, and that takes decades to raise them into full-fledged Mandalorians.
Right.
They just know that they're not going to be able to survive.
And that's why they're
by only doing the strict rules. So the armor realized that it's time to put this aside. If we truly want the Mandalorian way of life to continue and to survive, we have to let go of some of our more strict beliefs and start accepting some more loose adherence to these rules and unite. We have to come together. The segregation has to stop.
Yeah.
And she's sending Bo-Katan out as an emissary to bring the Mandalorians that are scattered around the galaxy, because there's obviously more. So she's going to go out and she's going to find them and, bring them back to Navarro, and there you go.
And plus, she understands that if she sent one of her own out there, nobody's going to listen to them, because once they say, "Oh, you're a member of the Watch, you're psycho, get away from me,"
right?
They're not going to listen. So she knows that they're only going to listen to somebody like Bo.
Right. And I think, that's the way to bring them back together. And she proclaims that once we have our people, once we have reclaimed our people, we will reclaim Mandalore. So once she gets them all kind of gathered up, and they can come to the conclusion that, like, despite our differences, we are Mandalorian. And that's been the main problem with the Mandalorians, is they've never been able to come to a understanding of each other's differences, which is what caused the schism, which is what caused the civil wars throughout Mandalorian history. But at this point, with the armorer and Bo, who is the leader of each kind of ideology of the Mandalorian people, if they can get along and bring everybody together, then they could go back, take Mandalore, and rebuild their world, which I think is a whole nother story that could be broken out there and done so well if they really wanted to. Carson Teva is returning back to Adelphi, to their base camp, and as he is traveling, he comes across a derelict transport, which he finds out was Moff Gideon's prison transport. which had gone missing during its return trip, I guess, to Coruscant for him to face trial for his war crimes, which we were reminded of in a previous episode. And we now know that he is out loose in the galaxy somewhere. Judging by the damage to the ship, it looks like they just basically blew a hole in the ship and killed everybody inside. My issue with this is how did they not kill Moff Gideon in that same breaching?
Yeah, because that ship wasn't even that big.
No, they're big, but
you got to look at it. You got to look at it again. Was the damage? The damage was outward, and as Tess made a point of pointing out, it didn't look like the crew had a chance to draw weapons.
Right.
So the thought process, follow the chain, leads you to believe that there was a plant on the ship that obviously assisted Gideon. So give Gideon some sort of a mask or something, plant an explosive on the side of the ship. Explosive goes off, there's a hole in the ship.
Well, I mean, even still, even if the explosion, even if you planted something on the inside of the ship, that ship's not that big, and so how do you keep from damaging the entire ship and blowing the whole ship up?
If they had some sort of a like Richard was saying, so say if they had a suit, even a stormtrooper suit, they have sealed. They are actually designed to allow them to survive in open space. That's kind of the point of them.
I'm not talking about that.
No, I understand, but listen, if they had some way of protecting Gideon, like putting a suit on, they blow out they depressurize the cabin, basically. All of them would be killed instantaneously. Though it doesn't look like that ship's that big, they were in the cockpit. The cockpit is the very front portion of that ship. There's a whole nother cargo area on that ship that that is separated by a bulkhead. So when they go into that ship, if they go into the cargo area, it's separated by a bulkhead. So technically, if they were down there, he got suited up, they came up and breached the cockpit and killed all of the people that were up there, it would make sense. It could be done. But again, the plant, like, I don't know. I the whole idea that again, because they scanned the area and they found a remnant of a Beskar metal, so we don't know what that was. If it was supposed to have been some sort of a missile, then it would have been an exterior breach out to in. If it was a bomb, it doesn't make sense that one fragment of Beskar was sitting there. I honestly, in my opinion, believe that is 100% a frame job by Gideon to make the New Republic think that the Mandalorians have them, so he would get more time to escape while they hunted down the Mandalorians to find out what they did to save him. Because I can't for the life of me believe that any Mandalorian, after what he did to their planet and what he did to all of those Mandalorians that he himself professed to murdering on their planet, that any Mandalorian would help him in any way, shape, or form. I can't believe that would be a thing at all.
I agree. I don't think it's any Mandalorian. That's just it's just dumb to even consider. Yeah. Now, will the characters in the show consider it? Probably.
Now, my only somewhat opposition to your statement on that is, I know this is far-fetched because I've already found not necessarily a caveat against it. It's just something I don't like about it. Mm-hmm. Is if we have, let's say, go back to Rebels. Let's say if I just went blank on her name, Sabine Wren, Sabine Wren. Let's say she comes back. She knows that Gideon is going to be connected to where Thrawn is. And Thrawn is connected to where Ezra is. They're trying to bring Ezra back. So they all have no idea where Thrawn is because the Purgle whales. Mm-hmm. So Sabine could have tried to raid that ship to take Gideon and force him to show them where Thrawn is so that they can find Ezra. My only problem to that is Sabine would not have
taken the life of
harmed
all
the
those
crew.
people.
Yeah, she would not have harmed the crew.
Right.
Unless the crew was secretly remnants of the Empire trying to steal him away and take him back to the Empire. And she just happened to interrupt that process.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm finding a way, but yet not.
I'm honestly starting to think we're all going to end up with egg on our face because we keep bringing up Sabine and Ezra and Thrawn, and we keep trying and hoping against all hope that these guys are all going to show up.
Right.
But we're 3 episodes left. It's got to happen. It's either going to have to happen in the next 1 to 2, or it's just not happening because I can't see the finale being centric around those characters.
No.
Well, Ahsoka's just around the corner, and they have to connect Mandalorian. The end of this season, they have to connect it with Ahsoka to make it flow.
Yeah, I feel like what will happen is I don't think we're going to actually get to see them in Mandalorian. I think that it's going to be something that they are actually saving for Ahsoka. But I think that because they keep making these veiled references to the possibility of these things being there with the Purgles and with, Zeb showing up, that kind of thing. I think that there is a slight chance that we'll see like a quick cameo-ish type of situation, or like this whole thing that happened right at the end of this episode. There may be something short that ends up in there, but I like Richard said, I don't think we're going to see them in this. And as the season has gone on, I don't think I want to. I think I want them to save them for Ahsoka, but but that's how the episode ends. So we have 3 episodes remaining, 1 more general episode, the penultimate and the finale, and we still have a lot of questions in place, but I really feel like the way this episode went, I thought the episode was great, aside from freaking old Greg over there that had to intrude on the episode. But he's gone, so I can be happy about it anyway. Never to be seen again. I don't want any of you to disagree with me.
Until he shows up on the season finale.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
He'll be in the flashback next episode.
Oh, flashback.
All right, that is going to do it for us. We do want to thank you for listening and for watching. On behalf of Vic, Richard, and Tessa, I'm Corey. We'll talk to you next time.
See ya.
Later, y'all.
Do you feel the vibes?